Fabian Wulff is a dynamic leader in the digital marketing and cryptocurrency world. He is the account manager at a leading Inc. 5000 agency and commands over 5 million in annual ad spend, driving growth for over 35 clients. He has taught email marketing at Brigham Young University, Idaho, helped start two marketing agencies, and is the founder of Yellowstone Mining, a crypto mining company. As an influential BYU-Idaho instructor and a pioneering crypto entrepreneur, he is shaping the future of digital finance and empowering the next generation of business leaders and marketers. Please welcome my dear friend Fabi. Good evening.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Good, good. Happy to be here. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I'm stoked, Fabi. For those who are listening and don't know, Fabi and I go back to my agency days and when we were both at BYU Idaho, and just wonderful guy. You're a wonderful man, Fabi, and I think you offer a lot of really unique insights both in the crypto world, in the like just personal life advice as well as marketing, obviously. That's what you do very well. And I'm just excited to talk to you. But yeah, welcome to the Why Not podcast. Let's start with your story. I like to ask my guests what their story is. I know that's a super vague, broad question, and I've heard bits and pieces throughout the years, but I'd love to hear Fabi's story.
Yeah. Oh man, this I would say my story is I hope it's interesting enough. But I was born and raised in Germany, and life is quite different there. But I had no desire, to be honest, to ever move anywhere else. I love my hometown. I really like being in that comfort zone, and to just forever hang out with my friends and not having to worry about anything. It's really easy when you're a young teenager and everything's just provided for you.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously that's not really that doesn't really last that long. And when I was older, I lived in New York for 2 years, and that really kind of opened my eyes to saying, you know what, there's a lot more places out there and a lot more interesting places. A couple of years later, they let me to BYU-I, really the only place that I could really afford. And that's why I ended up there. And yeah, now years later, I got married, and we're staying here in Idaho now, and it's been quite awesome.
That's fantastic. I mean, really, just thinking about how you went from Germany and ended up in Idaho is just
Oh,
it's
it's
just it's beautifully ironic, I feel like. Just like maybe not like going through it day to day, but like observing, it's like, holy cow, like that's something. Like it tell me more about why Idaho. You mentioned you went to BYU Idaho because it's cheaper tuition, that's also why I went there, to be completely honest. They do a very good job at empowering students who don't have a lot of resources and a lot of financial upbringing or options. And it worked very well for me for that reason. Sounds like it did for you as well. Tell me
yeah.
more, like how does Fabi from Germany just like, end up in Idaho?
Yeah, it was interesting because even my upbringing. I mean, I come from a probably from a relatively simple family.
Mm,
My dad worked hard, and he was fortunate enough to have a job that at least kept us in a really comfortable situation.
mm,
I would say very far from rich, and very far from you can just kind of do whatever you want to, obviously.
yeah.
But at least, especially in Germany, at least we were homeowners, and we always
Mm,
had vehicles to get around. My dad had a work vehicle. My mom, we always had a family car, so it was it was comfortable.
mm,
And so, growing up, my parents never went to college. No one really they knew any of their friends went to college, so it was a little new to them. And really, their kids were kind of the only ones even in our extended family that really went to college. So to them, that was already this huge, crazy achievement of, oh, our kids can go to college one day. This is awesome.
yeah.
They have so many opportunities. And and just growing older, I kind of realized, wow, it is really different, and kind of the, I guess, the circle, the society, or the community that that grow up with really kind of determines where you end up, unless you're willing to to maybe look a little outside. I mean, Rexburg is by no means a place where where you have a lot of wealth or a lot of big entrepreneurs really living. Um, but it was probably a little more of a family decision. Obviously, my career and everything that I've done does not fit Rexburg at all. It's not a digital marketing hub. It's by no means a crypto hub, and maybe a little bit of a family hub. So that might fit, but that's pretty much about it. Um, after I graduated, I really liked digital marketing because it felt like even without owning a company, I can own maybe a product, or maybe I can work with businesses almost as if I'm part of, their overall strategy. I can make decisions independently, and you can see the results almost immediately. That's what I really liked about kind of that marketing world. And
Yeah.
obviously, that led me into all sorts of crazy stuff, like ending up teaching at BYU just because, you gain some experience there.
Yeah.
And then with crypto the same. That's I just kind of got bored, and I wanted to, branch out into new things.
Well, I think there's so many beautiful nuggets that I'm going to pull out from your answer there because I think there's a lot to discuss within that. And I think the fact that you're like, "Oh, I just felt like mining crypto." It was just kind of because you were bored. And I recall when you first started and we were both still at Incline Marketing, you started building your own mining rigs, and I was like mind blown because of course like I was keeping up with like the news and things like that. Like I remember like this was around the GameStop days, but you just embraced it, and I think that says something for your natural curiosity. I think it says something about your work ethic, but then also it it shows the power of just trying things. Like you
Yeah.
didn't you didn't start day one thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna own my own business doing this," and now you do. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really crazy because I like the idea of being early to something.
Mm,
And now looking at all these professionals in this, really this tiny, teeny tiny little crypto world, right? Or really blockchain world, right? There's the crypto dude side, like
mm,
the all the crazy stuff happening in Web3. Really, what I liked is just the underlying technology and realizing, wait, there's there's something new out there, and there's something that could potentially really, you know, revolutionize a lot of different things just overall in finance in general, digital finance in general.
mm.
And I really liked that. I liked just discovering something that not everyone already knows about. Because I knew, when it comes to marketing,
Yeah.
like I've learned some skills, and I'm really happy for what I've learned, but I know there's probably someone out there that's definitely a lot smarter than me because they've been around, and there's people that probably sleep less than me, which means they have more time learning. So I almost had to find something that I'm extremely passionate about, I would never get tired of, and I just never want to stop learning because it just interests me so much, right?
Mm,
And I feel like having a skill set and
mm.
and I guess a hobby, but also something you're really passionate about, and kind of just bringing the two together is honestly has been the best thing ever.
That's amazing. I think um you said something very intriguing about wanting to have a passion where you would naturally continuously learn. Tell me more about like that desire to continuously learn. That's something that I have observed that you constantly try to get better at whatever it is you're doing. You mentioned your dad working really hard. I think that has definitely transcended onto you, and I think that's fantastic. I feel like the hardest working people I know are the most grateful people I know, and I feel like the most grateful people I know are first generation immigrants to the United States. And like I say that very proudly of you and my other colleagues who are very much the same, that just they work hard and they make things happen, and I love that. But I think there's that important connection of bringing that hard work to that continuous learning. Because I know a lot of really hardworking people who don't make a lot of money, who don't have strategy, who don't have necessarily that direction. And so I'd like to understand more how you're able to connect those two so well.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely something to work ethic that um, for some people it's given.
Mm,
Um, just because, like you said, you see your parents work the same way.
yeah,
You see your parents work hard, right? Maybe you grow up just in an environment where people just really, they it's like the blood, sweat, and tears, right? They
yeah,
just work hard all day, and maybe their dads or their moms are just gone working long hours. They're exhausted and really just trying their hardest. Um, I think there's definitely a valuable lesson in that. But I also think there's the other side to it, right? Kind of what you mentioned. Some people just work extremely hard and they really never get anywhere. And
yeah,
I've seen a lot of that in Germany, where,
yeah,
my parents had these friends and I mean, they're struggling every day
yeah,
and they never get by, and I look at their situations and I say, then why do they do what they do all day long? Because they know they're never going to make a penny with it,
mm,
right? And so I think it's really important that you take that um you, you take what you've learned when it comes to just a work ethic and you combine that with a really good skill set, and
yeah,
that's really what's going to set you apart. And
mm,
I think that's really what's going to help you, because you can have the best work ethic, but if you don't at least have a skill set that makes you better than someone else, it's unfortunately it's not really going to lead you anywhere,
mm,
unless you combine the two, right? I mean, for
yeah,
me, it was, I started developing skills in marketing, which I think every single business needs. So I
yeah,
knew even if I'm not the best at it, there's probably going to be a demand for it at some point, right? Every business in the world wants to grow. So
yeah,
every business can take advantage of getting some help there, spending $1 and making three. But if I wouldn't have that skill set, I could probably still be a hard worker, but it might not be able to give me, a niche or something that I'm really good at. Just having that, um, I don't know, just having that alone.
the strategy is amazing.
Yeah.
So like taking hard work and combining that with skill set, and I mean I can completely agree. That's the recipe to success, really, is being able to do that more and more every day. So let's talk a little bit about skill set then. We made the connection between that hard work and that skill set. Uh, for the sake of those listening, tell everyone a little bit about what you do in marketing and the courses that you've taught, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I've done quite a bit of email marketing in my life. I've taught a class on campus. So unfortunately, I can't claim that I'm a professor, right? I don't
Okay.
have that title, but I'm an instructor, which is fun because I still get to teach on campus, and I get to just, to be able to see those kids where I was just a couple of years ago. It's been like 6, 7 years ago now, but I was sitting in their seats, literally. I remember I was teaching a class and I actually had a class in that exact same classroom
Yeah.
just years ago. And it's kind of interesting seeing that teacher perspective and just knowing, man, it's not even been that many years and I was sitting right there,
Yeah.
not knowing anything, right? And how fast it can go that now you're swapping the seats and
Yeah.
you're in the teacher role. So that was really fun. And so email marketing has definitely been something where I feel like I've definitely developed one of those skill sets, right? One of the kind of the experiences that are really difficult to find unless you have a place where you can actually learn it.
Mm,
Because you don't have the luxury of an agency that has all different sorts of clients, from e-commerce to local businesses to financial institutions and more, where you get such a big variety of just things that are going on, right? You can work with small startups, where you maybe have only a couple of hundred people you're sending to, or to lists of, hundreds of thousands of people. Um, a lot of times you don't get that big of a variety. You
mm,
go, maybe you work for a business and you kind of doing the same thing all over again. Fortunately, I had the luxury that I was able to just see a lot of different, a lot of different businesses and do it for them.
Yeah.
Um, there's obviously this big back end, like the deliverability side to it, right? So there's also a little bit of technical knowledge that is extremely difficult to really find anywhere. There's not a YouTube course about it or a Udemy course or something, right? So it's really just something that you just kind of have to learn. And you don't you make mistakes along the way and you learn from it and you just keep getting better and you keep tweaking. Right? It goes back to that skill set. You just put in the hard work, um, you know, analyze what you've done and just continue to get better and better from it.
I love that. Really learning through experience and application, less of the just strictly academic sign off.
Yeah.
Sounds like, yeah. So I'll ask the controversial question, is email marketing dead?
Oh, that is the controversial question. And it, every single time I want to say yes, but it always leads to no. I mean, it's really interesting because we have, I work with clients and we're building these strategies for them and you kind of have your life cycle marketing and they're starting out really small and you kind of realize, well, if you're bootstrapping a business or if maybe you work with franchise where you have a little bit of brand awareness but really not that much, there are very limited things you can do right from the beginning. Um, a lot of again, I'm just talking marketing, right? But a lot
Sure.
of leads to kind of the paid advertising.
Hmm.
Um, but once you realize that there's a lot more strategies that can help you grow organically, including something like growing your lists, right? And
Mm.
engaging with those customers, all of a sudden you realize, man, there is a lot of money to be made in non-paid advertising as well.
Right.
And I mean, your ROI is gonna knock everything out of the park. You just gotta get there first. You gotta build your lists, you gotta nurture your list. You have to make sure that you continue to engage with them. If you just keep growing a list for 5 years and then start marketing to them or start engaging with them, half of that list is going to be dead by then, right? So you
Yeah.
have to already have a good strategy in place. You have to kind of invest up front and then just continue to grow it.
That's a really good point, especially on the marketing side, where a lot of businesses don't capture that value simply because they don't think to or they don't care to. A lot of a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of agencies not even offering email marketing or not really tapping into that when they are doing paid ads or even like content, things of that nature. They're missing a huge opportunity because a lot of these businesses have that data, and email is something where you can use first party data fairly well. And with the environment we're experiencing with privacy on Google AdWords and everything, like my hat's off to you, man. I think more agencies need to be doing that. I think more marketers need to be doing that. And I'm just not seeing a lot of that being done. So that's fantastic. I'd like to dive deeper into what it is you find most helpful for business owners to understand in the marketing space. I know in the agency world, you work with lots of different businesses, different types of businesses. I work now in-house as a marketer as my day job. Surprise, shocker. I know podcast isn't my main job. It's crazy. I think I
We'll
have
we'll
eight
give it
listeners
another
now.
year
Yeah.
and then we'll
Yeah.
see.
That's right. But being in-house, like that's always the pitch or the confusion is the business owner doesn't understand or doesn't quite get what marketing really should be doing. And so from Fabi's eyes, with his experience already an instructor just only 6 years after being an undergraduate, like that's crazy. So in Fabi's eyes, what do you want these business owners to know about marketing?
I think, it sounds really silly, but I think the very first obviously is,
Mm,
understand that you got to spend a little bit of money to make money.
mm,
Even though I don't think that is always the case in digital marketing specifically, that is the case, right?
mm.
Um, you gotta either put in sweat equity, which you could put a price tag on, right? Yes, you can bootstrap a lot of things, but you're gonna pay the price, and the price is long nights. You're gonna be working lots of hours, and you're probably not gonna get a lot of sleep. So I would say that still is a price. maybe not a dollar amount, right? On the other side, if you're going a paid route or really almost anything at this point, you probably have to invest a little bit. But I would say the most important thing for me that I would love for business owners to understand is if you want to dive into marketing, understand that hopefully you see that if you're spending a dollar, that dollar does something for you.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of people think it's this weird magic place that's called marketing, and you're just putting some money in and it magically gets money out of it for you, right? With absolutely zero skill set. You don't have to know anything. It's just this infinite money printer, right? Here's a dollar and there's $2 coming out. And I really hope people understand that marketing is so broad, digital marketing, right? There are so many different avenues, and every avenue is going to give you something slightly different. Um, they all have I would say that they all have a very valuable place, right? I would say obviously for me, email marketing has an extremely valuable place for me, but really the value you're probably going to see down the road when you have thousands of people that are on your list. You're not
Mm.
going to see your value of email with 75 people on your list just starting out.
Mm.
Um, with paid advertising, your first couple $100 might actually move the needle for you already. If
Mm.
you're good at it, you can run some paid advertising, you can run social ads, and you might already see traction from day one.
Mm.
Maybe not as good as you want it, right? Nothing that's scaled at that point. But you might see your traffic increasing on your site, right? Or maybe you see some sales coming through depending on what you do. Um, so I think there's always value to it, but I would love for business owners to understand so many different places, and I feel like there's a place and a service for everyone. They just need to understand what place and what service is best for them at that point in time.
Mm. And really, I feel like you're so empowered to say that because you do see a lot of different types of situations that require different strategies. And you know how you said it rings so true. Is like marketing is not this magic bucket you just dump money in and expect things to happen. Like, and a lot of businesses, especially bigger businesses, will treat it that way, and they'll end up suffering because, of course, they're not getting good ROI most of the time. Sometimes you can accidentally win. Like I know there was a case that I read the other day where it's like they ran some crazy out of the box ad campaign with some maybe just insane humor. And they're like, yeah, this might work, this might not. And it blew up for them and it did fantastic. But it was a mistake. So they replicated it and sure enough, they didn't succeed. And I think what you're talking about is really being intentional with your marketing, intentional with your marketing dollars. And
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
setting some expectations as well, right?
Mm.
Um, like I have some clients and there was moments or there's definitely some meetings where I can tell maybe a client is upset or maybe not quite happy, and I'm trying to figure out why because things look really good.
Mm.
And down the road I hear that they just lost tens of thousands of dollars on some random social campaigns they ran. And obviously they had a lack of expertise,
Yeah.
but they're also so upset because they're saying, well, we spent all this money and we didn't really make any in return, and we really lost some capital on there.
Mhm.
And then they want me to move the needle with maybe 8% of what they spent, and I'm like, hey, look, you weren't able to make it with your $100,000 budget here.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do that with eight? Right.
Mhm.
So I think it's just really important as a business owner. And again, I'm speaking purely from the marketing perspective, right?
Sure.
You have operations, you have employees that you need to keep happy. I mean, there's so much more to really operating a business.
Yeah.
But purely from the marketing side, I think you have to understand that marketing's not easy.
Mm.
It's not this magic machine. You put money in and there's more coming out.
Mm.
But I also think that you need to set some clear expectations, right? Because if you go into a marketing strategy with some very clear expectations and they might be something outrageous, you very quickly know that you probably have to lower your standards or vice versa. But I think you need to try to aim for something because that allows you to then tweak things, right?
Yeah.
and to just continue to get better. Where you're saying, well, that's my ROI right now, but is there potentially a way to get even better ROI? Oh, who tells me that that's a good number, right? So I think it all comes down to just understanding there's lots of different avenues and your business there is something for every business. I feel very confident in saying that. You just have to figure out what it is because not every avenue is going to work for you.
I feel like those last 10 minutes were a crash course on brand management and marketing strategy that I hope every VP of marketing, every CEO or SMB owner, like they need that. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that insight because I think that's very accurate and very needed. Um, I want to circle back to what you mentioned at, earlier about education and like not only are you an instructor and you've been able to see how the matching skill set to hard work is incredibly valuable and helps people, helps you strategize for clients. You shared that you are a first generation college graduate. And I think you say that so casually and it's huge. I'm a second generation immigrant and my dad was a first generational college graduate. And I know that the work that goes into that and the sacrifice and of course I applaud you, but I want to understand through your eyes why that was so important.
Um, I think my biggest drive or biggest motivation, is I feel like there was a very distinct moment in my life where I learned that you're not automatically a victim. And even though there's definitely people that get victimized and people that are treated unfairly, right? Um, I think sometimes there's a lot of truth to understanding that sometimes we kind of dig our own grave a little bit. Um,
Mm.
and my parents, what I have noticed is that they were very comfortable in just their surrounding, their environment, and that was just the standard for them. And they were always just slightly above the standard that they saw around them, which they were extremely grateful for what they had,
Yeah.
and it was just normal for them. And I always wondered, why is it so normal to accept that you're struggling, right? Why is it
Yeah.
so normal to accept that, well, you're never really going to be able to give a lot? Like I feel like a lot of the motivation for me comes because I would love to be able to um just give more and to be more generous with people around me.
Yeah.
I'd love to go somewhere to a third world country for a couple of months and just build homes or build schools. And you know,
Mm.
if you want to do that, you have to be able to just leave for a couple of months, right? Meaning you probably don't have your standard 9 to 5 job. Um,
Right.
and on the other side, you also have to have the means to even do that, right? And that's always been very intriguing to me. And I think living in
Mm.
New York was obviously a little bit of an extreme.
Sure.
You see millionaires and billionaires around you all the time. And what struck me a lot is just their generosity,
Mm.
and the way they were able to change someone's life with them not even knowing how much good they just did to that family, because to them it was nothing, right?
Mm.
To them it was spending a couple of minutes a day, um, or maybe the equivalent of a couple of pennies was going to a family, and that family now was finally able to, uh, you know, look for a job for another month because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to even
Mm.
pay for their living. Like I've seen both extremes. I think one of the moments that really stood out to me the most was when we had a good friend who's renovating someone's home, and that person is a CEO of a publicly traded company sitting in this almost homeless person's home. Well, funny enough, homeless person's home, but sitting in this person's
Yeah.
home, and he had nothing. It was run down. It was not comfortable, and we were trying to just figure out. how can we help this person, right? How can we help him to just feel better, get better, and just get some sort of motivation in his life? And and the guy expressed, and he said, I probably just have to live a little healthier. And we looked at his kitchen and said, there's no way you're gonna live healthy in this mess. So the guy just said, "We'll renovate your house," and he spent 2 days renovating that dude's house, running a publicly traded company. And I thought that was so awesome to see that, and to see that, if you have the means, and if you're putting yourself in a situation where you have an abundance, it allows you to abundantly give to other people. Because my parents, they gave a little because they had a little, but they're never going to be able to really give much, right? Because they never had that abundance. And I would love to be able to be in a situation where I can not just take care of my own family, but also just simply just be able to take care of people that need it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's time. And sometimes that means at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you got to spend a couple hours with someone because they just need you there. Well, if you have a job, that's going to be quite difficult. And sometimes it's that check that you just have to write to someone, right? Or sometimes it's giving someone that old beat up car that you have sitting around. It's those kinds of things that I feel like just make me really happy, and I'm really trying to get there one day.
That's inspiring, man. You just give me goosebumps. I'm feeling that one. That was very, very empowering to think about pursuing money, wealth, not as a means to just a luxurious life, but as a means to helping others and really recognizing that you can be a good, wonderful person and doing wonderful good things, but money, wealth, financial stability will only empower that. And I think that's a very important message, Fabi. I think that's something I needed to hear. That's something that a lot of people need to hear, especially in our current economic situation where some people need that motivation, need that push. You mentioned uh, not accepting where you're at or not accepting the challenges you're facing. That's something that I have to constantly remind myself. I definitely feel like victim to victim mentality occasionally. I think that's a powerful reminder. So I thank you for that. I think you know, you were talking about being able to or about that CEO just taking time out of his day to help renovate. And I think that challenge is a very common narrative, especially among um, those who do have a lot of challenge and who may be in more poverty and who find it difficult to accept that they don't have to accept that. And that narrative is this, that rich people are mean, evil, cruel, awful human beings
Crooks, yeah.
crooks who they got to the top because of that, and the only way to get to the top is if you are an evil, cold crook. And I just don't agree with that. And I think how you explained it, like it just destroys that notion that just because people are wealthy and rich and successful in that sense does not mean they have to be mean, evil, or manipulative. And yeah, that's fantastic. Maybe tell me more about that. Like, t tell me more in your eyes. Where do you think that narrative needs to go?
I think you can certainly find both ways, right? You'll
Mm,
find the crooks if you look for them.
sure.
And I also think it's probably more difficult to find the humble people.
Mm,
Because they're usually the ones you won't find in your ads, and you won't find trying to, get you to their side. And I always, it's this funny thing, right? You won't find them trying to make you buy their course, you know. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, um, because I think there's a certain point in maybe someone's career or maybe someone's life where you're really trying to prove it, right? You're trying to just, I want someone to see that I've made it, or I want someone to um to prove it to someone because they thought I couldn't make it or something like that. But I think in a very humble way, once you realize that you're way past that, you just realize, you know what? I've just been given um I've just been given this, maybe this wealth or maybe this responsibility, and I just need to make the best out of it. And I like this. This might sound weird, but I like, Dave Ramsey talks a lot about it, and
Mm.
he's the debt guy, right? He's trying to help people out of debt, and I
Sure.
try to not even get into debt. So we have our disagreements there, but I think one thing that he always talks about is that if at any point in time you have any kind of wealth, you now are a steward over that money, right? Or maybe over that piece of real estate, or maybe over that just piece of asset. It doesn't matter what it is, but you've been given responsibility to take care of that, whatever it is, in the best way you can. And I think that's probably something that a lot more people need to realize, a lot more people need to understand, and realize that it's not a luxury to just have a lot because you can burn through cash
Yeah.
like a crazy person. But you're given something and you now have a obligation, a responsibility to to make it even better,
Mm.
right? And again, I don't have the millions laying around. We certainly try to save up. We certainly try to make the best with our money, investing in all sorts of places, including crypto and some crazy project, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's just you have to realize that everyone's been given some responsibility. There's some people with not much, and they are probably just going to get by for the rest of their life. And I think that is totally okay. There's not a right or wrong. And I think on the other side, you have people that are just being given a lot, right? Or some people just make it, so to say,
Yeah.
and they get to a place where they definitely can live extremely comfortable. Um, and I think even though everyone wants to get there, I think it also takes a lot of responsibility to actually be able to live that kind of a lifestyle and to make the
Mm.
best out of what you're given.
Absolutely. How would you say that relates to fatherhood and being a dad? You have three wonderful girls from what yeah, you still three? Yeah.
Yep, still
There.
three, probably always
Wonderful.
going to be three. I don't know
There
if
we
I
go.
listen to this a couple of years down the road and we have five, then, don't sue me, bro. But
Of course. I would never sue you, bro. I got your back. But yeah,
um,
I mean, stewardship, how does that relate to being a dad?
I feel like there's probably a lot of different connections because even with kids, right? You can be the dad that just raises children in a way of
Mm.
help them grow, help them become, I don't know, help them turn 18 if you want,
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think it's never easy, but there's probably a shortcut in just make letting that happen.
Mm.
And I think there's definitely a second part to it, which means you're really just putting your heart and your soul into it, and you realize that you want something absolutely better for them than you've had, even though you've already had something so much better from where you came from, right? So
Mm.
you kind of want to just the goal really is that every next generation can be better than the previous one, right? Even though
Absolutely.
we see that turn, and you can argue that there are some generations that are definitely worse off than their parents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think at the end of the day, I hope that my kids can inherit and learn all these lessons that I had to go through, and hopefully find some that I have not been able to learn, or maybe will never learn in my lifetime, right? It's it's really funny. My oldest daughter, she wakes up early, and
Nice.
typically when I come home from the gym, I just sit at the table at the market open in the morning, and my daughter and I, we look at she calls them the lines, and we look at charts, right? And she can tell me if a stock is doing well or if it's doing poorly. And I sometimes I
Wow.
just for fun I ask her, I'm like, what would you buy? She's like, Dad, I think you should buy this. I'm like, okay, Nvidia it is today, or Tesla it is today, right? Um, Not making
Wow.
any suggestions here, but
Sure, sure.
but it's funny because in
Yeah,
such a simple way, right? She's far from obviously understanding what she's talking about.
sure.
But there's certain things she learns just by observing her parents. And it's a huge responsibility as a parent to make sure that whatever you do, your kids always see you being responsible. Your kids always see you as being someone they actually want to be at some point in the future. And for my daughters, right, it's hopefully I can be an example to them that one day when they find their future spouse, that they
Mhm.
look for someone that I hope is better than their dad, but at least the values that I had and the respect that I've been given, that I'm giving my kids, that they can try to find someone that has the same respect for them, if not more, hopefully more.
That's wonderful. That's empowering. Empowering. I feel like you're the ideal girl dad where you
I mean,
you
there's still get a
want
lot
them.
of yelling, and I'm definitely breaking some fuses here sometimes, or they're breaking my
Sure,
fuses, but I
sure.
think that's part of it too,
Yeah.
right? Um,
So
and I hope for every parent out there, they understand that there is no perfect household.
yeah,
Everyone's got difficulties, and everyone has a lack of sleep,
yeah,
and everyone's exhausted. Ask the moms in the household; they're always
yeah.
exhausted and they're overstimulated 24/7.
Hmm.
That's part of it, you know? And just because that's part of being a parent or being a mom or being a dad, that doesn't mean that it's easy, right?
Yeah,
I don't think anyone goes into parenthood thinking that it's gonna be easy. But I think there's a lot of value to at least trying to make the best out of it and being the best example, even just to some little kids. You think they
yeah.
won't remember, they'll remember a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, the brain is 80% developed by 3, and
Yeah.
long-term memory kicks in at 3. So like they will remember
They'll
a
remember.
lot more
Yeah.
than you
Yeah.
think. Absolutely. I want to call out something that you said that I feel like is often missed in this type of conversation around parenthood, which is you didn't say you want your kids to have whatever you didn't have. You said you want your kids to learn what you have learned so that they don't have to relearn it. And I think that's such a powerful distinction because I myself fall into the trap, and I know many other parents do as well, where like, oh, you know what? I didn't have a lot of options as a kid, so I'm gonna make sure my kid has all the toys, or I didn't have like a lot of clothing, or like, or we didn't have the cool cars, so I'm getting whatever car my kid wants, or stuff like that. And like I'm gonna make sure my kid doesn't ever have to work a day in their life. That type of honestly nonsense. And I think it's beautiful how you distinctly mentioned you want them to know what you've learned so that they can then grow upon your shoulders and to do that with that mutual respect. I think that's, a lot of parents especially older parents these days will be like, oh, there's no respect for parents anymore. And I think that goes both ways. And I think you're doing that beautifully. The fact that your daughter feels comfortable and safe and excited to sit next to you early in the morning looking at stocks and market trends, like I don't think you realize how rare that is and how fantastic that is. And yeah, my hats off to you again. I think that's some powerful advice for parents, some powerful advice for leaders, and especially those who are trying to break cycles, generational cycles, and those who are really in the thick of it, trying to make things happen. So thank you for showing up this evening and discussing these things with me. I'd like to end with my concluding question for every episode, which is this: what does being happy mean to you?
Ooh, that's simple, but I'd probably say loaded question. Um, I think happiness, really full happiness is doing something that you love that continues to push you and at times kind of puts you in a little bit of a comfort in sorry, in a little bit of an uncomfortable zone so you can grow, right? I feel like there is there's a very fine line between comfortable and kind of that almost getting into uncomfortable. And I feel like somewhere in between there is where people are the most happy. Don't be too comfortable with your life. Don't just hang out and do nothing. But at the same time, try to get some skills, try to develop something that can put you in a life and maybe give you a lifestyle that just makes life a lot easier. because then you can focus on everything else.
Fantastic. Mic drop moment right there. Thank you, Fabi. You've been an example to me on being a dad, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.